All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Absolute Cinema Podcast. My name is Eli Hollingsworth.
I'm Jake Hollingsworth.
And today we have a very special guest with us. We are joined by the one and only Sean Chandler. Say hi, Sean.
Hello.
We are huge fans of Sean Chandler. We've been watching him for years now. We love his takes. I think, Sean, a lot of people like your channel because you just seem so, level-headed, reasonable. Your takes are very, you just seem like you're genuine. And you don't have a lot of, controversy. You're just very, to the point, and I think you have a lot of stuff that we think is just, very reasonable. So we love your content.
Yeah, that's kind of what I aim for. Hopefully, I have the passion for movies and the perspective of a normal person. But at the same time, I've just spent more time watching more movies, being too nerdy, learning too much about them after watching every movie, reading every Wikipedia page. So I just have more knowledge. So I'm a little bit better able to capture normal people's feelings in words and take an idea that's in their head and actually...
No, I think that's great. I think that's why a lot of people gravitate towards you. I know that's why we gravitate towards you. So, I was
gonna say, you tend to avoid all the polarization stuff. You just kind of stick to the way it's written and the story that most movies are trying to present. You just more stick to the entertainment side, and that's usually what movies are all about anyway. And I think that's really cool that you managed to do that in a world where everyone's always you have to like it because of this, or they don't like it because of this, and it's all just crazy stuff.
Right. You have to attach everything to a grander narrative about this studio,
exactly.
This political movement, this agenda. And it's just take the movie at face value. And sometimes there are, of course, things you have to touch on to give an actual evaluation of it. But when you come in to watch a movie and you've already got your filter, that's an agenda, it's a narrative that you're filtering the movie through. You can watch any number of reviews out there that so obviously they showed up. Before they saw the movie, they'd kind of made up their mind a lot about the film. No, I go into every movie wanting to like it, and not looking to be won over, not looking for it to confirm my biases about Disney's agenda or whatever.
Yeah, no, totally. So, our first question for you is, what is absolute cinema to you? It's a broad question, but I mean, what are some of your favorite movies, or
Yeah, for me, I'm just not the kind of person that comes in with these sort of absolute statements about this is the best or anything like that. If you ask me my favorite movies, that's pretty easy because I've had to make that video, a million times before, and I've been asked the question before. But I also don't associate my top 10 list with the 10 best movies of all time. Not remotely, and I don't want it to. I don't think it should, because my 10 favorite movies should reflect me, not even into your question, absolute cinema. If you go through my 10 favorite movies, it's probably about the most obvious generic list for someone that looks like me that's 43 years old. We've got Terminator 2, Die Hard, Aliens, Rocky, Ghostbusters, Back to the Future. It's a cliche, but honestly, I don't think that's a bad thing, because there's a reason that everybody my age that looks like me loves Predator and Back to the Future and Terminator, because they're great at what they're trying to do. That's kind of my taste in movies. I tend towards popcorn films. I like movies where guys run around with machine guns and kill aliens and robots and terrorists and things like that. That's just what with time travel as well. That's just what I like. And I would say
I would say I kind of have a similar taste. You say popcorn movies. I kind of have a similar taste in that as well. A bunch of my favorite films in my top 10. A bunch of them, Rocky and Back to the Future, are both in mine as well. And so I do enjoy. I kind of like you about a bunch of popcorn films. I know that Die Hard is really on the top of my list of action films I really want to see, but. Which I know seems crazy to admit.
Did you just say you haven't seen Die Hard yet?
I mean,
how do I leave? Is there a way to exit?
Okay, maybe you should have left this off camera, but I think I get to expose myself.
How dare you, sir? How dare
you? Probably should have caught myself, but point is, I think I do enjoy popcorn films, much like you, but I am looking forward to at some point getting to Die Hard on camera, but Yeah, it's just like I do like well-made films like Christopher Nolan and stuff like that. But sometimes I just want like a popcorn, like crazy, like action star movie every now and then. But like you can keep going with what you were saying. I didn't want to interrupt you at all.
Yeah, so like it's a little bit of a loaded question because I guess the context is we're talking off question. You coming from the Martin Scorsese meme, you have a guy that has just such a purist view of cinema, movies as art, that you when you make a movie, it needs to say something and it needs to, and that's fantastic. Many of the greatest films ever made, by him for that matter, are exactly that. But the fact that a movie is made to make an artistic statement, I don't think it makes it more valid than a movie that's made to put a smile on hundreds of millions of faces. Like, we were talking before we started about Endgame and how that was one of the videos where you guys discovered me when Endgame came out, and you're talking about a movie that in the history of mankind put more smiles on faces and made people feel more in the theater than almost any movie ever. And you go, all right, they made a piece of cinema that moved people emotionally. It's mainstream, it's popcorn, it's from a giant corporation, it's as IP as you can get. All that's true, but also they made something that brought joy into the world, that brought emotions out of people. And it is an exploration of how different people respond to failure. And so the idea that we would diminish that is cinema just because a lot of people enjoyed it, I have issues with that. And I have issues with when sometimes I feel this a little bit too much with the Oscar conversations a lot of years where it's almost like appreciate the fact that something isn't accessible for a lot of people. It's almost an endurance test. Like, I mean, this is real cinema that it challenges the audience, and it's like, does that actually immediately make it better that it's more difficult to sit through? Because I feel like Christopher Nolan a year ago was able to make a 3-hour-long movie that was very thoughtful, thought-provoking, challenging, fantastic, everything that you can have. Also, it's a very accessible movie. It's a movie that takes science and debates about politics and war and makes it very palatable for normal people. To me, I see that and I go, that is amazing cinema, that you can do something that difficult and that accessible. That's why he's the best. Versus someone that makes something that is very challenging but also is really only made for cinephiles that like the endurance tests in theater.
No, I totally agree. I agree with everything you're saying. I think it's all, subjective. I think that's what's beautiful about it, So what was a movie for you that you watched maybe at the perfect time in your life that changed the way that you view movies and stories? What was that movie for you that you watched that you were just, a movie that just was at the right time and it just changed, your perception? It really struck you, or what was one of the first ones that did that?
Well, since we're on the topic of Christopher Nolan, Memento.
Really?
So Memento came out right after I graduated high school. And a friend of mine and myself kind of discovered that there's movies out there that are at these other theaters that are smaller. They're movies that don't have huge budgets, that only play at the art house theater. And sometimes they even have famous people in them. And so we started going to this art house theater in town. It was the Arbor 7 at the Arboretum in Austin, Texas. It is now a cheesecake factory. You cannot watch movies there anymore.
Really?
But you can eat cheesecake there. But so my friend, he goes, dude, this movie came out. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. It plays backwards. What are you talking about? It's the movie starts and it's the end of the movie. And then, basically, every scene is the previous thing chronologically speaking. I was like, what are you talking about? How does that work? He goes, you got to see this movie. So I go see this movie, and it absolutely blows my mind of there's finds a way to put you in the mindset of the character in it that has this memory loss, And it's structured in a way that because of the order the information is told, you do get to the end, and it's like you finally understand the movie that you're watching when you get the information at the beginning. And it only works because of the nature of the character and the framing device, with it being backwards. It's just like taking a movie and seeing it from a totally different perspective of what you can do. And I just never thought about it that way. Just like the boundaries of what a movie was just shattered by this guy, Christopher Nolan. And so, like, in that regard, I wasn't the earliest of adopters because he had following that was like a true micro-budget thing that only played in indie films. But Christopher Nolan, beyond the ultra, like, niche people that discovered following, I was part of the first batch that was like, there's this guy that, like, wrote and directed a movie that played backwards, and, like, it gets just only played at this one theater, but it's got Trinity from The Matrix in it, and the guy from L.A. Confidential's in it. Oh, actually, has another guy from The Matrix as well. So it's like, it's got actors in it, but, like, it's a small movie, but it's, like, really smart, and it just blows your mind.
Yeah.
And so that was the movie. Like, it was, like, and so, that, in that regards, beyond the fact that Christopher Nolan is, by a bunch of objective standards, there's a strong argument that he's the best working director right now. As a person that loves movies, he emerged quite literally at the perfect moment. But it wasn't just him at that same period of time. Like, Jon Favreau's first movie came out in that same window of time. It's called Made. It's nothing like his stuff that went on to become gigantic, blockbuster stuff. Right. It's like a small little, movie inspired by 90s. Yeah, indie film. Very, like, all these are art house. It's all the same theater.
Yeah.
So, the $1-2 million budget. It stars Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn. Actually, Sean Puffy Combs is in it. Not ideal in the year 2025. But several familiar faces. Famke Jensen is in it. So it was like, Vince Vaughn was on his rise, but he hadn't quite exploded as a comedic actor. And, Famke had been in X-Men the year before. And there's some other familiar faces. So, once again, like, small budget, but realizing, wait a minute, movie stars do stuff besides movies with aliens and mutants and super... And go see it. Just check out this thing. And it's very kind of inspired by Tarantino in the 90s, but also Jon Favreau wrote Swingers, which had Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau as actors in it as well. But he didn't direct it. And so this is kind of a spiritual sequel to Swingers, but directed by Jon Favreau. So once again, this movie's not it's not Memento, it's not as mind-blowing. It's just like a good little film. It was like, that was kind of cool. And that's my introduction, really, to Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau. I'd seen Vince Vaughn before because he was in Lost World 4 years before this. But this was the time I was like, this guy's really funny. And then it turned out he was really funny shortly afterwards. But, so these guys that went on to, both of them in 2008, Nolan and Favreau, they put out Iron Man and The Dark Knight. Two of the most pivotal, iconic films in the comic book movie genre that really kind of this era that has been dominated. They were the movies that launched it in 2008. 7 years before that, I'm at this art house theater, the Arbor 7, in the Arboretum in Austin, Texas, that's now a Cheesecake Factory. Both of them had a movie that I saw at that theater. And, small these movies, like $1-2 million budgets, they shaped me. They made me, there's other movies out there that are entertaining that aren't just blockbusters. But also, that was their on-ramp that led to them becoming some of the most influential and pivotal directors of the 21st century.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, sort of on the subject of forming your movie foundation, I was curious, did you ever consider majoring in cinema, anything, and for college at any point?
No. I've considered
Really?
now going back to take classes. Now that this is my profession, now that this is what I do, and I went to Career Day a week ago at my daughter's school, and so to me, I'm YouTuber and film critic. No kid at the elementary school cares that I'm a film critic. Which is interesting because if I wasn't a YouTuber, being a film critic is a really interesting job. I work for a living. I talk to movie stars. I go to literally in February was at an awards show with every single major actor that was nominated for an Oscar. I was there in the same room as them. That's a really cool thing to be able to say.
Yeah.
At the event where we met for The Chosen, I used a urinal next to Jace Robertson of Duck Dynasty. Like, I can name drop really goofy stories. No kid at the elementary school cared about Movie Critic, the thing that actually is, to me, more respectable. Just care about that I'm a YouTuber. But to me, I think the future of what I'm doing is being very good at being film critic guy or film journalist and expanding that field. And my knowledge of films, my analysis, my opportunities, things like that. That's where the future is at, because that's where there's respect and prestige, as opposed to and when I'm 50 and 60 years old, will the kids still want me to put my Captain America mask on? Like, some point in time, you age out of being a goofy YouTuber. So to your question, I think about it a lot of trying to take some journalism and film classes at Austin Community College here in town. But those are all thoughts since I've gone full-time on YouTube. But it's just tough when you work for yourself and travel a little bit and press screenings of finding what's the window where I could actually add one more thing in. It's been that. But I never thought back when I was watching Memento and Made, in my free time I'd sit and write notes for scripts. I had ideas to do things. But it never occurred to me to go to film school.
Really?
I've just never been wired kind of that. Some of it is also with what I do. YouTube didn't exist until 5 years after I graduated high school, and you couldn't make money doing it until 10 years after I graduated high school. So it wouldn't have crossed my mind in the year 2000. I bet I could work for myself making videos of myself. In the year 2000, you couldn't easily make a video of yourself and put it on your computer. 5 years later, that had become easy. But in the year 2000, I made all sorts of stupid zombie videos of myself, and the ways I had to edit them and everything, it was like a nightmare. It's fascinating.
Really?
It was literally just a few years after we started to be able to transfer footage onto a computer became much easier. But when I graduated from high school, there was no easy things for a normal person to do without a bunch of expensive equipment. And I guess by about 2003, I did start doing video editing for my church. So I guess by 2003, it had gotten better. But there was that's when the technology change happened, where digital video became something that was normal people had access to.
Huh. No, that's
interesting.
It's an interesting bygone era for us. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of those
are there
things
any
that you don't even realize that. I guess it's typical old person talk. You realize you're getting old. Back in my day, we couldn't put a video on our computer. I bought the first time I ever did real video editing on my computer. We had a device that was designed to capture pictures from a video camera and put them on your computer. But I jury rigged it to literally basically doing stop motion with a video, each individual frame, and then used whatever shady software I had to do this, and then try to put a ray on it, and all this stuff that was so time consuming that you don't even stop to think about how quick and easy all of this is. If I'd had one of these in 1998. Oh man, there would be 10 zillion goofy videos of me everywhere with incredible visual effects, but I just couldn't do it at the time. And when
would you ever put those? Sorry, would you ever put any of those videos on your YouTube channel?
So I've actually started to transfer a lot of our old home videos to through Legacy Box. I've started to try and transfer it because a lot of it's on VHS tapes. I don't have any technology at my home to be able to do anything with a VHS tape. So I've been using Legacy Box to kind of transfer old home videos and what very middle-aged things to do of my family's legacy is going to disappear if I don't transfer I got to turn it digital so that we can live on forever. Which is kind of cool because it's the first time I've heard my dad's voice in 20 years because my dad died when I was 20.
Wow.
And so some of the things you don't stop to think oh wow, I hadn't heard his voice since 2002. So I'm transferring that stuff, but I haven't gotten to found those particular things quite yet. I don't know. I might do something with some of that stuff, but I did extensive scripted stuff for church videos, camp videos and stuff.
Really?
Rules videos, or I wrote and basically shot a 50-minute-long camp video. It was probably the most egregious misuse of time when I worked at a church. It was my merging of Inception, Empire Strikes Back, and Dodgeball, and it was a 50-minute-long scripted thing I did. That's out there.
Cool.
Some of that's actually on YouTube right now. Like, it's on YouTube right now. If you want to find something really interesting. I killed my mother in it. That was kind of fun. I blew her up in a space battle. There's I think a 6-minute-long space battle that's recreating a joke version of the Death Star run in a New Hope.
Okay,
awesome.
we'll find that, and then
that is on YouTube right now.
we'll hold you hostage with it. So I got to know your thoughts on this, because I always love to hear your takes on this kind of thing, because it's not exactly the usual that I hear. But is superhero fatigue a thing? What is superhero fatigue, and how do you think that's affecting the greater blockbuster superhero space right now?
So
with
when
Marvel
you talk about superhero fatigue, if you look at the comic book movie genre right now, and the number of comic book movies that have either disappointed or outright bombed, lost hundreds of millions of dollars over the last 3 years versus the percentage that bombed or lost money during the last decade, it's pretty obvious that the percentage is much higher. And you can look at, this is both Marvel and DC. I mean, DCEU was bombing so badly they had to kill the whole thing. And I mean, they had bomb after bomb after bomb, and then it's like, well, let's put out Joker 2. The first one made $1 billion, even bigger bomb, like losing hundreds of millions of dollars. But it's also everything Marvel as well. Not that everything is bombed. I'm not saying that, but MCU, like their hot streak during phases 1 through 3 of what was considered a disappointment then versus like what might happen now is pretty wild. I mean, the Marvels lost hundreds of millions of dollars. Nothing like that happened in the first 3 phases. And then you look at Captain America Brave New World as well as Thunderbolts. Both of them are looking to maybe break even, but probably lose a little bit of money. And Captain America Brave New World didn't get particularly good reviews, but Thunderbolts did. Thunderbolts has been well received by critics, and the people that have bought a ticket generally think it's good. But people aren't buying tickets like they used to. This is an overly long definition of what you said. But it's that tendency where, but I think what you're really seeing, though, is that the comic book genre was inflated during the last decade because there was a hot streak. There's never been anything like Phase 3 of the MCU.
Yes.
It literally made it so a goober like me was able to go full-time talking about movies on the internet. That's how exciting Phase 3 of the MCU was. But so you had a hot streak where something unprecedented happened that made people very excited for the genre. And just in general, it was a decade where there was a lot of these billion-dollar films. And studios came out of that decade and they went, I guess we can't lose. Let's just double and triple down on this. And how much of that was their arrogance? How much of that was them not realizing we'd made it over the top? Like, we reached the peak. Now maybe it's better to cut back on production and increase, like, really make sure the quality's good. Instead, they doubled the quantity. And so now we're doing Sony Spider-Man villain movies. While we're doing 4 MCU movies a year, plus 5 TV shows. Yeah. And we're doing Joker and the Batman and closing out the DCEU. Plus, we're doing Across the Spider-Verse. There's just so much. And so it's oversaturated while the quality is dipping. That very few people think that phases 4 and 5 of the MCU have been nearly as good as phase 3. Quite literally, I'm at church at Sunday, and a guy that's graduating high school in a week is like, "Hey, Thunderbolts, it was finally a good one." And he's like, "It's one of the few good ones since Endgame." And I'm thinking, Endgame came out when you were in the 7th grade. You're telling your whole high school? and one of my former students messaged me. It was like both a current high schooler and one of my former students from 13 years ago. She's like, "Hey, should I go see Thunderbolts?" I was like, "Yeah, this is a good one." She went to go see it. I was like, it was a good one.
Yeah.
And when you think
Yeah.
it's that like people aren't
Yeah, they're
fatigued.
surprised.
Yeah.
People aren't fatigued of good movies. So, like everyone's praising Across the Spider-Verse 2 years ago.
It's true.
Everyone, had fun with No Way Home. Like there's no shortage of people that want a good comic book movie, but
Yeah.
they're just totally burnt out on mediocre comic book movies, and we're way oversaturated to the point where you like besides these ones that are just like a Spider-Man movie that has 3 Spider-Men in it. Wait, Hugh Jackman is back as Wolverine. These things that like just stick out as special events for the fans. Besides that, people don't know how to sort through all of the noise. And it doesn't help that the culture on the internet of first,
Back
I
from
think
what?
that's what
Like-
right. The superhero fatigue. It's that oversaturation and too much mediocrity.
Yeah.
I like what you said earlier, though, about arrogance. Like, whether or not that's arrogance or them realizing they hit the peak. I think that's something that people overlook is arrogance. Like, you bring that up, and I kind of think, like, you kind of think about that. Like, maybe that's something that not enough people bring up, because it feels like, oh, these are going to, like, a slam dunk instantly, so let's just throw anything against the wall, because we know it'll make $1 billion. And then most of the time it doesn't. And so then you just kind of start to see that, like, Black Widow. I feel like Black Widow... I don't hate Black Widow. I think that movie is fine. It's just... I feel like they just assumed it was going to make $1 billion, which I think it did. It's just it wasn't... It's just the... Like you've said multiple times, like, and I kind of agree with this, the finale gets a little bit too, like, cartoony at certain points.
Well, Black Widow didn't come close to $1 billion, but also it came out one of the first blockbusters post. Like it came out while theaters weren't open for COVID, and it was day and date release with Disney Plus, so it didn't come close to $1 billion. Yeah. But also, like it was delayed a year, and there's a lot of COVID. So had it released, like it probably would have that same Captain Marvel bump of like might have hit $1 billion.
Oh, that's a good point.
But yeah, I mean, I think there was. If you go back and reevaluate phases 4 and 5, like let's go back and like, in light of what we know now, hindsight's always 20/20, of course. The perspective they didn't have, but it feels like there's a very large amount of just hubris on Disney's part. There seems to be pretty good reports that this is coming from the top down. Said, hey, Kevin Feige, we need you to keep cranking out stuff. We need content for a streaming service. He didn't really want to go into television. They're like, you need to create 5 TV shows for us every single year. And do cross ties. Make them tie into each other. And so if you go back through that and you think through, like, I think the Marvels is the ultimate example of something that, in retrospect, this just feels so incredibly arrogant that they took people for granted. That we're going to make a movie that is a sequel to a film, a TV show, and it's a spin-off from a different TV show and kind of tied to a third TV show. So to really understand this movie, you have to watch all this different stuff. And this is not in any way the most organic follow-up to Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel made over $1 billion. Like this is what as much as the movie doesn't have the best reputation, made over $1 billion. So if you were normal and you weren't trying to take advantage of people, you do Captain Marvel 2 3 years later, and almost certainly would have captured a lot of the same energy and momentum. But instead, they're like, all right, we're going to make a sequel. We're going to use Captain Marvel, and we're going to like squeeze in Miss Marvel from a TV show that plays to a different audience, a very teeny bopper show, intentionally with visual onomatopoeia. It's like a girl in high school. It's supposed to be. We'll latch that on there, and we'll do this character that's from WandaVision, and you just play that out, and you go, there's rumors that Brie Larson was like really irritated that her movie was stolen from her, and some people try to report that as like her being difficult. And you stop and think, she starred in a movie that made $1 billion. Of course, it was elevated by Phase 3. It was elevated because it was sandwiched between Infinity War and Endgame. Of course, but it made $1 billion, and then they used her follow up as a mechanism to like make people try to watch TV shows they didn't want to watch. And of course it horribly backfired, and everyone's like, I haven't seen those TV shows. I don't know what this is. I'm not going to go see that. I just don't care. And it's just like, just so much arrogance has to go into a decision to like try and like trick people into getting a Disney Plus subscription in order to understand your movie.
Yeah, no.
Well, even going off of your point with that, I think Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is another example of that, because like they just assume that everyone's going to watch WandaVision going into it. And even then, that feels like Wanda's character going from WandaVision to Doctor Strange 2 doesn't feel all that consistent. Yeah. And like we've known that there was a bunch of rewrites, so maybe one of those drafts it was a little more consistent. But another problem, which I know you've been brought up by this, I totally agree with your points on this, is that the Marvel Parliament very much hurt the system, like the way they make movies with reshoots. And I was curious, is there anything that the book, I know you've read the book of behind the scenes of the MCU, was there anything that further really gave us details about what went on with the Parliament and why they did all those reshoots? Because I know you've brought this up before. I'm really curious. What did the book say about that?
Specifically Doctor Strange?
Well, not only specifically Doctor Strange, just like in general, like does it give more information about what goes on like behind the scenes and like why that was put in place? It doesn't have to be Doctor Strange specifically.
Doctor Strange, that one is a pretty unique situation because it was kind of a lot of that was COVID combined with indecisiveness.
True.
So they were like, they wanted to do the cameos and then they were trying to figure out what they wanted to do with the story, and it just kind of spiraled out of control into this fluid mess is kind of what happened.
True.
But essentially, we even know a little bit more now than we did even 2 years ago when the book came out, because publicly Marvel Studios has been like, we made some mistakes, we're trying to fix this. So then you have these articles that have come out from Hollywood Reporter, Variety, and then most recently Wall Street Journal that has basically kind of started to give us better insights. So this most recent one from Wall Street Journal, what it talks about is that basically Kevin Feige wanted to be a company man. Like, all right, like I'm the biggest producer on the planet because you guys have enabled me to do what I just did. I want to play ball with you guys. And they went, all right, well, what we want you to do is populate our streaming service.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason that Phase 3 was so good and Phase 2, the reason is because we did a reasonable amount that we can contain the quality control. And you have to Kevin Feige is kind of like, if you think of him as like kind of the final person doing approval on things, he's the secret sauce. It's not that he's writing the script and it's not that he makes every decision, but he's kind of the person like overseeing it that can see that's a bad direction, that's a bad script, and giving like, his notes. And when he was doing 3 movies per year with an established writing group, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
But we lose all of our main writers, a bunch of our directors after Phase 3, and we get a ton of new people, and we get a ton of they're doing not twice as much content. They're doing like 4 times as much content per year because they're doing these TV shows.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much watch time was increased in a single year, or I guess it was 2 years. But so what kind of was mentioned in this report is that Kevin Feige didn't want to do this, and then because he was doing it, he just was so spread thin that the creative groups would email him and say, hey, I need your feedback on this, and he wouldn't be able to give them feedback until it was too late.
Yeah.
And so the guy that is able to, all right, let me read the script, let me hear what you're trying to do. All right, this is good, this is not so good. Let's try and gives that feedback in the writing process. And so the script's a little bit better, and it ties better into things. All of a sudden, there's way more things, and therefore it's also more complicated of the cross-pollination and the how does this story interact with this one. So it's twice as much, but that makes it like 4 times as much, or it's complicated. And there's 4 times as many decisions that need to be made. And he's late on all the decision-making.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
you immediately see how this is spiraling out of control because every problem compounds another problem. We have new writers that aren't established, getting less oversight in a more complicated system. So then they shoot a movie with the scripts that's not as good. And then they realize they don't like the script and it doesn't fit in with this other thing, but we also didn't do cameos. People are really excited about No Way Home because of the cameos, so maybe we should add more cameos. And so when we do Doctor Strange, we need cameos, but we don't know who's going to be available, and we don't... All of a sudden, you start to see how this spirals out of control into indecisiveness, undercooked scripts, and the guy that's the secret sauce starts joining in too late into the process. He goes, oh, this isn't working. Maybe you should do this. So now we're trying to rework it too late in the process.
Yeah.
And likewise, that's where some of these movies that had massive reshoots, it's kind of that. And they don't say exactly which projects, like the Marvels was one of them, but they don't list all the projects where this happened. They don't have enough oversight at the beginning. Kevin Feige is too desperately trying to get the projects that are releasing in 2021. All of his time is on like making sure those are finished. So he's not reading the scripts for the movies for 2022, 2023, and not giving them the notes before they start filming. Think about it in those terms. So all of a sudden, why on earth do they start having like more and more cracks forming, and they start to fall apart, and there's more extensive reshoots with Doctor Strange in 2022, with Secret Invasion and the Marvels in 2023, and then they take 2024 off because they need to reshoot Captain America 5. All of that happens because Kevin Feige's not reading the scripts as much. He's not giving that oversight during the over planning, during the writing, all that stuff in 2021, because he released 4 movies and 5 TV shows. You just play that out like that, and you go, oh, that makes so much more sense.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I mean, studio's the real villain of every superhero movie.
Pretty much.
But we just got today the Superman trailer, a new trailer for Superman. And how do you think DC's going to fare with Superman? Because it seems like it's James Gunn and Peter Safran are the two in charge of DC. Seems like it's a singular vision. So, but James Gunn's kind of weird. So, like, do you think that this will be a mainstream, translate with the people, and that DC will be able to get back off the ground with this?
I think the biggest hurdle for Superman is that Superman and DC fans are just very weird.
Yeah, that's true.
That you just think of like there's a segment of the DC fandom that don't actually like Superman or DC Comics. They adore Zack Snyder's interpretation.
That's
of
true.
DC, and you kind of immediately right there you go, that's a very strange phenomenon. But it's more complicated than that, because also there's people that love the Arrowverse. There's people that love Smallville. There's people that love all these little pocket things. And for whatever reason, whatever that is, that people are a little bit more like, this is my version of DC. In a way that I don't feel like they've done that with Marvel as much. That Marvel's a little bit, thus far, has been a little bit more accepting. And maybe it's because of the weird history of DC movies. It's just whatever that is, that people latch onto their version. And and I think if you create is the fandom itself so broken and shattered and polarized that no one would be able to make a Superman movie that would actually bring everyone together. I mean, you just go back to 2013. The Rotten Tomatoes score for Man of Steel is in the 50s, which means half of critics went, "Oh, that was really cool. That got a fresh new take that has a little bit more of an edge to it. It's more introspective." More kind of grounded humanity. And the other half is like, what on earth? Superman's supposed to stand for hope. He even says that in the movie. And he's brooding the whole time. And he's like snapping necks. Like, what are we doing here? And
exactly.
It's a polarizing film. People love it and people just don't like it. And so, like, already that happened 10 years ago. But that's stuck. That same exact, like, split fandom. That people decided that they don't like this movie as soon as it was announced, because we're not restoring the Snyderverse, which is crazy. Like, because that was never going to happen. Zack Snyder's like, I'm done with it. I don't want to work with Warner Brothers ever again.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then likewise, like James Gunn, the reason that like people loved him until suddenly they didn't. Like, this is the guy. Like, just stop it. The Guardians of the Galaxy are D-list Marvel characters, except for James Gunn. Like. Prior to 2014, Guardians of the Galaxy are like, this is like uber comic nerd comics.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, first off, like not his first movie. We're talking about his connections to Zack Snyder. He wrote Zack Snyder's first movie, Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, like, this is a guy that can do other things. He also wrote the Scooby-Doo movies 20 years ago, and he wrote like if you watch his first two movies, they're nothing like Guardians of the Galaxy. This is not. And he's also written other movies that other people directed more recently. He's not a one-trick pony. And if you watch the two trailers that we've gotten for Superman, they do not have any Guardians of the Galaxy or the Suicide Squad humor in them. But people, that's all he does is he just this juvenile humor.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't. If you think that, it's because you're arrogant or ignorant. Like you don't, you are ignorant of his actual filmography and what he has done. All you know is the most famous and popular thing that he's done.
Yeah.
But I think that's the stuff to it that it's a very strange phenomenon of people having such passionate opinions about something. And I think the thing that makes, because I don't know what will come of that because they are so kind of split. I know I can look at my views for my Superman videos to there's a lot of interest that has me optimistic for it. So that feels like a good sign that just because the loud crazies on the internet are hating on it doesn't mean that normal people aren't excited for it. But I just don't know. It's one where it's difficult to know what the target is. It's not obvious what Superman movie people want because there has not been a widely accepted and popular Superman movie since Superman 2 40 years ago. Over 40 years ago.
No, I think that James Gunn... I mean, Guardians 3 is such an emotional film, such a funny film at the same time. I think he's a very talented person, so I think that... I think that if everyone's, skeptical about Superman, I just think he made Guardians 3, how can someone who made that go wrong? And everything he says about what he thinks Superman is just, I think is exactly what I think, so...
Here's my fear. Here's my reservation. It's my most anticipated movie of the year, very excited, all positive energy. Here's the fear I have, is that what if James Gunn's gift is that he's great at taking a group of the losers that are weirdos and pulling them together, and that's his trick. That's his thing that he's able to get people to connect with. And so as soon as you give him a star, I mean, Superman is the A-list of comic book superheroes.
True.
And he's not the reject weirdo. I mean, I guess Superman is rejected in his own ways, but he's not the reject weirdo in the same way that Rocket Raccoon and Groot are. Even you look at the Suicide Squad Peacemaker, they're all about rejected weirdos finding family, ensembles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, what will he do when he's given premium ingredients, not the rejects? Does the magic work? Does that propel him to the stratosphere? Or is the weirdos the thing that that's his gift, is making the weirdos the A-list with Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah.
But you look at his Superman movie, and Green Lantern's in there, and Hot Girl's in there, and what's it, Mr. Fantastic, or not Mr. Fantastic, Mr. What's the
Mr. Terrific.
Mr. Terrific, yeah, there we go. It's like Mr. Fantastic. It's definitely not that. Mr. Terrific's in there. We got Crypto in there. We're doing everybody's in there.
Yeah.
And you go, all right, is he having to turn Superman into an ensemble because that's his trick? Or is it the version I hope it is, which is for the first time ever we're getting a Superman movie that's just this populated world of superheroes that's super comic book.
Yeah. No, that's the only thing that would do it for me is overpopulation, for sure.
Real quick, out of all the DCU projects that we know about that are coming, not going off just going off the confirmed ones, not the ones that are allegedly to be in development, is there anyone specifically, which character, well, to be more specific, is there any character that you wish that you most want to see get adapted properly into DCU, either by James Gunn or just by anybody?
DC characters that I want to see adapted? You kind of asked, you asked about ones that are being adapted and do I want to be adapted, which are kind of two opposite questions.
Here, I'll rephrase that. Which character do you want to see either be adapted, or which character do you want to see be done proper justice in the future? No pun intended, by the way.
So I think one that's always been lacking is a good version of Dick Grayson, which is crazy.
Yes.
Robin, we've got Chris O'Donnell as a guy in his 20s is adopted by Val Kilmer, very corny movies, and then we've got Burt Ward in the 60s in the adaptation of the TV show as a movie, but we've never really done a proper Dick Grayson, which is one of the more interesting aspects of Bruce Wayne. Like
that's
it's
true.
It's partially about Dick Grayson, who himself is an interesting character with incredibly rich history of being Robin and Nightwing.
Yeah.
But as an aspect of Bruce Wayne, that he becomes a really bad father, but maybe the father that this kid needs, and in some sense saves Dick Grayson from being as broken as he is. Dick Grayson is a more well-adjusted person than Bruce Wayne. And that's interesting. There's a lot in that is like, oh, that's we've never taken the Batman lore far enough to be able to properly do kind of this Dick Grayson. And it's a character that you could, maybe it's Bat Family, maybe it's a Nightwing solo film where Batman's the side character. There's a bunch of things that you could do. But yeah, a street level story with Dick Grayson as a very prominent character along the same lines. Awesome. We got a TV show of Arrow, but we've never seen Green Arrow in a movie.
True.
Once again, kind of street level character that it doesn't need to be super sensational $200 million budget.
Exactly.
The thing that is missing in so many comic book movies is that like they keep trying to blow out the budgets and do alien invasions, and everything is this big. And one of the things that's so refreshing just in Thunderbolts is a rock almost falls on a lady that has broken her ankle, and U.S. Agent catches it. And then the rest of the team needs to walk over and help push the rock, like saving a person. Saving a person, stopping local crime. You can make a $75 million, $100 million Green Arrow Nightwing movie, and you do awesome choreography in it, like kind of more visceral. It's designed for a tighter audience, like dudes like me that their favorite movies all involve machine guns and people getting beaten up. And you make a movie that a budget that appeals, like it's the perfect movie for people that love martial arts and practical stunt work and visceral action and aren't as interested. I don't need a bunch of CG army. I just need to see some thugs and mobsters getting shot with arrows and being beaten, have the crap kicked out of them. And you can do that much cheaper, and it doesn't need to make as much money. It's a more niche film, but it's designed to be awesome for that niche.
Yeah. Well, even going off of your Green Arrow point, which I think both of your, I do love your answers. I agree with both of those. My thing with Green Arrow is that I think Stephen Amell did a good job. It's just the way the character was portrayed, I feel like, to me, he felt too much like Batman than actual, like, Green Arrow. Green Arrow traditionally is more of, like, a Robin Hood type character, and then for the show, they kind of did, like, Batman Begins almost as a TV show, which is not bad.
Season 1, I said, you can look up, before Sean Chandler talks about the first video that's a review, like, literally 3 years before Sean Chandler talks about it. 3 years before Sean Chandler talks about it's my Arrow season 1 review, and I said it's basically Batman Begins as a season of television. And I don't like that's not even really a criticism, but also to say that
of course not.
It's not the there are to say that it's not the truest of adaptations.
Yeah.
No, I want to hop on over to Star Wars as we kind of wrap up here, but because I want to be respectful of your time, you've given us more than I think it's gracious. So
this has been great.
Thank you so much. But I want to jump over to Star Wars because today we got the finale of Andor, and we both love Andor. I think it's we know you like it too, but Star Wars is kind of in a similar place with the DC fandom where it's very splintered, very polarized. Do you think that Andor is doing more good for the Star Wars community, or what is the relationship that Andor has? Because it's turning off a lot of fans as well. The ones who enjoy it really love it, but, the Star Wars community is still very splintered. So what do you think the relationship with Andor is with the Star Wars community?
I mean, I don't think Andor does anything to hurts the Star Wars fandom, because it doesn't dabble in things in a way that breaks what people love about Star Wars. So, people got mad about The Acolyte a year ago because you watch it and you go, wait a minute, what are you guys saying about the Jedi? Like, wait, Jedi are like they're like kind of like groomers trying to steal people's kids and indoctrinate them. Like, why are we? And I even watched a video earlier today that was like, the Acolyte and Andor are really similar. Both of them are about two powerful organizations, governing systems at their peak, and how the people in power had become corrupt and were oppressing people, and how a rebellion needed to form. And it's like, oh, you're making me hate the Acolyte even more. Like you're saying that as a positive, that the Jedi became like were like the Empire.
The Empire,
And your whole point is that like an evil Sith that was murdering people was the rebellion that was fighting back against the man, and it's like you're breaking something. Like, there's a difference between the Jedi became arrogant, and their arrogance, and they made poor decisions that led them to get involved with a war, and they were generals in a war rather than the Guardians of Peace, and there's a difference between that and actually equating the Jedi with the Empire and groomers and kidnapping kids and like all the, like utter corruption. Like, not we've lost our way, but we are evil. And especially to the point where a show where you're like, right, I mean, the Sith are actually not so bad. They're kind of stopping the evil Jedi. Like, we are so like,
exactly.
What are you doing here? That steps on toes. That makes people go, like, I fundamentally disagree with your interpretation of Star Wars. Andor doesn't do that. Like, you might not like Andor. I totally understand if someone says, I signed up for space wizards with laser swords and weird creatures, and this is politics.
Yeah.
Like that is 100% fair. But there's nothing with it that actually would step on your toes. It's not like, wait a minute, the rebellion had to kill people? Like, this is kind of how that works. And that to me is the difference. That you might not like Andor, it might not be for you, but it's not polarizing the way that Acolyte
Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi, like they did things that were like, let's reshape the way people think about the Jedi and Luke Skywalker. That's when you step on toes. Andor subverts expectations because it's a change of genre, but it's a change of genre that fits in. And it's like, let's have a very mature perspective on what the rebellion would really look like, how it would be funded, and do this very thoughtful look at fascist governments and what it takes to fight back against them, and what would it take for people to realize they need to rebel. That's not that's subversive and different and interesting, but it's not Luke Skywalker grabs a lightsaber and throws it over his shoulder. That feels like a different guy than who I saw before in the previous trilogy that I watched.
No. Well, even to your point, or you say some people might not want to watch Andor because it's too political. When you think about it, like specifically specifically the prequels, but like at its core, Star Wars has always had a little bit of like a political like message, like woven into it. Not like outright in your face, but like more of like subtlety. Like the fall of the Republic and the Jedi can even be like traced to like the fall of Rome almost. I think Luke, I saw somewhere Lucas admitted that was what he was intending to like parallel. So it's like Star Wars has always kind of had
that's a positive, not a negative.
Yeah, it's not negative. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's just like it's always been there. It's just some of them are a bit more upfront about it. Like the original trilogy wasn't super upfront about it. The prequels, that was the whole thing about it. And like you can argue whether or not Phantom Menace should have made that the entire plot, but it's always been there. And it was never always a negative thing. It was mostly just tell an entertaining story. Even though the prequels are flawed, they at least had it in there and it at least worked for like the sake of the story. Yeah,
well, that's totally. George Lucas went to college and studied anthropology. And in there's a video for the day that he started writing Phantom Menace. Like he documented the whole day, and he sits down at his desk and he's got a stack of history books about the fall of empires. And that is what like you can like, is he good at writing dialogue? Like, does he have a weird issues with sand and was Jar Jar? There's things that are valid criticisms here, but also like those movies are just infused with like this like very thoughtful look at how empires fall, where they become corrupt, how they lose their way. There's all this rich stuff in there because at going into it, he studied history. And when you watch Disney Star Wars, they studied Star Wars. I call it creative inbreeding. Because it's Star Wars inspired by Star Wars and inspired by Star Wars. When George Lucas wrote the first Star Wars, he was like, oh, I love Flash Gordon, but they won't let me make a Flash Gordon movie, but I also love these Akira Kurosawa movies, and I love all these Westerns. And, you know, coming out of the Vietnam War, like, I've got all these thoughts on rebellions, and what do they really mean, and who's really is, what do we make of that? And then, you know, the dog fights from certain war movies, like what if you did a dogfight in space? And he took all of these very different ideas, and then he's studying mythology of past, and it's like, let's merge all of this different stuff together. And suddenly you get something that is so weird and different from anything else that's ever been created, and at the same time, weirdly the most popular thing ever made. Because it is built on the the archetypes are universal storytelling that have worked across time and cultures, and we're infusing all of these different genres that have worked across time that people love. And so it was like this merger of all these different things that was something special. In modern day Star Wars, instead of pulling all these outside influences to do something interesting, it's like, what did they do before? Hey, let's put Cad Bane in here. Hey, what if Obi-Wan showed up? Like, it's just that. But at the same time, if you listen to Tony Gilroy talk about Andor, this is Star Wars that is heavily like a guy that is obsessed with anthropology. He's obsessed with fascist governments, and he's bringing in totally different film genres into Star Wars. It's the guy that wrote the Bourne movies, and he's not doing an action movie like Bourne, but he's bringing in the espionage thriller side to it into Star Wars. And you watch it, and all of a sudden it fits in with everything else, but it's also fresh, new, original, and thoughtful.
Totally. I agree. So would you say the future's looking bright for these fandoms? Are you excited? You're excited for what we see coming in the future for Marvel, Star Wars, DC? Like, what do you think the future is looking? Is it gonna get more polarized? More like, what's your thoughts? What are your outlook on the future? How it's looking for these fandoms?
I mean, all of them feel like they're in such a place of flux that it's impossible to say. Like,
that's true.
Will people accept James Gunn's DCU? Well, I'll have a much better idea August 1st than I do now. Until that movie comes out and I see it and I see how good it is and how accessible it is contrasted with how it's accepted. Until I see that, I don't really know. I'm excited for the future because it is a change that DC went, Warner Brothers went, this thing's not working. Like, it's just so scattershot. It's all over the place. We have to make a hard decision that we know is going to step on some toes. But if we want to make our own cohesive universe, we have to just hard reset and put actually someone in charge of it from the very beginning that's trying to orchestrate this whole thing. And that was a hard decision that they needed to do. We'll see if they pick the right person. We'll see if it works. And we'll see if people are willing to accept it. Soon.
That's true.
With Star Wars, I'm not hopeful at all until there's just massive leadership changes. It's a completely just wandering thing. Just throw everything at the wall, and sometimes you get Mandalorian season 1 and 2, and sometimes you get Book of Boba Fett. Sometimes you get Andor. Sometimes you get the Acolyte, and then you get a bunch of things that are just so mediocre. Things that, like, even like Obi-Wan, it has things in it that I like, but there's also so many things that are like, how could you make such a cheap production of a show about Kenobi Like, it's insulting to, like, you brought Ewan McGregor in,
Yeah,
and you
exactly.
put him in a trench coat with a little girl in it. Like, what? The chase with Princess Leia in the woods? Like, this is embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I don't even understand how parallel are you making Andor at that production quality and Kenobi at that production quality? Like, that's crazy. That's so weird that you would hire the big guns and give so much money to do a show about Andor? About Andor? But Kenobi, the guy that's like this, like, it not only is it one of the most popular characters, the actor is incredibly popular, and he's the right age to play the character. So do Kenobi and hire the A-list. Don't get whoever they got to do. Who's this person? I don't know who did it. Like, I don't know what their resume is and who wrote it. Like, they're nobodies. It was like a movie they didn't want to make. And they're like, let's make this movie that we weren't going to make into a TV show. Like, all leftovers with less money for Kenobi. I don't understand. We should have 20 truckloads of money. Go make it. Why did you do that with Kenobi? Like, I just don't understand.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's and Andor has twice as much content too. Like, it's
true.
twice as many hours of content and much more production quality. Yeah, no, it's very interesting, and I don't know. I think studios have always been the villain. Studios copyright always the true villain of any nerdy fandom ever, but they're the ones that make it. So I mean, so coming to the end of this, Sean, coming to the end of your Absolute Cinema interview, are you closer to answering the question, even for yourself, what Absolute Cinema is? And, like, what does just story and cinema, what does it mean to you in general? Like, what does the idea of a movie, what is so exciting about that to you?
I don't know. I mean, to me, movies have that ability to just kind of take us off to a different place. And whether that's just our day-to-day way that we're entertained, or if it's a mechanism by which we're able to, are challenged by ideas that do have deep themes about oppression in the world or whatever, or it is as simple as we talked earlier about my dad dying when I was 20, and then shortly afterwards I went with my family to go see Spider-Man 2002. In kind of the darkest time, just like a tragic time in my life, I'm able to have fun at the movies and have this little escape from the hurt of this world. And it can be all those things. It can be art. It can follow all the formulas and be really entertaining. Or it can be Memento and do something just wild and crazy. It's like, I never realized you could do storytelling like this. It's just such a creative way to use the tricks of filmmaking to put you into the perspective of someone that has memory loss. Well, this is so intelligent with what you're able to do here. It can be any of those different things.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love that. And we're, again, huge fans of your channel. We love what you do. We love your hearing your thoughts on movies, and
you do such great work. I also love your film pitches. Those are also always very well made.
Yeah, where'd those go, Sean? You should bring those back.
Well, I have an idea for something, or someone asks me a question, I throw some out there. So it's just there's a lot of times that I just haven't. There's a lot of different things I can do, and it's what do at that moment. Do I have a thought about, or like a break in my schedule to like make something like that? But those they're always fun to do, and a lot of it's just like I don't stop and there's a lot of these things I wish I had them as like a rotating series that like every month I have a hot takes video, every month I do a pitch video, every month I did something that just kind of breaks the monotony of just movie reviews and stuff like that, because it's there's no shortage of movie reviews out there, but some of those other things there's not as many of them, so it's the supply is slower, and so the demand is usually greater.
Yeah.
No, yeah. We're excited for the future. We are excited for what's coming. We're excited to hear your thoughts on everything that's coming as well. So thank you so much for coming on, Sean.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely.
And so where can we find you? You're definitely more prominent than we are, but anything you want to plug, anything you got coming up that people need to check out, or what?
You can find me across all the social media. Just look up Sean Chandler. You'll either find an NFL player or a guy that looks like me that talks about movies. It's the guy that looks like me that's talking about movies.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's great. So thank you so much for coming on. We will see you guys next time. Peace out.
Peace out.